Ex-wife came crawling back after divorcing me for another man. Hello, True Story. Huge fan here now. I'm new here as I've learned you've done this for quite some time. Reading stories, that is. I've been listening to stories on both channels, and man, what a catalog. And I am honored to write you my story. Hopefully it's not too long. Please let me know if you can use it. By the way, I subscribe to both channels. I almost wish my ex-wife would have just asked me for an open marriage so I can join that club, lol. But seriously, I would have known that she was on some sort of bullcrap and I would have left then. But I had no clue, or at least intending to. I find it interesting that so many good people end up with pieces of crap, and I can be honest, it's not just women, men also. It seems to be impossible for two good people to get together. You know, in a relationship. Anyone have any insights or thoughts on that? I've called my own bros out for cheating on their great girlfriends, or even worse, their wives. If you ask me, no one is led by the Lord anymore, or the word in general. I'm not going to get too much into it, but that's what I believe. People are too weak to temptation these days. There's not a single woman in this world you could put in front of me while I'm in a committed marriage or relationship and I fall victim to temptation. Not one. When I'm in a relationship, I don't watch porn. I haven't watched that stuff in the past 8 years. Only time I would see anything was when I'd get on to X, my X app, previously known as Twitter, and it was always something on there, which is why I got rid of Twitter. True story, that's actually where I found out about you. Oh, and I'm sorry about what you went through with that other hijacking channel. I saw your back and forth on Twitter with YouTube. But one last thing before I get into the story. I believe everyone is allowing social media to shape their own personalities. Most people are not who they truly are. You know how many young kids at my son's school speak exactly like other self-proclaimed alpha males online? It's quite sad, actually. Not saying those guys don't spit truths, but just notice no one is themselves these days. All right, so let me get into my story of how my ex-wife thought the grass was greener on the other side. So 9 years ago, 2015, I was in Toledo, Ohio for a site visit. I'm a surveyor, and I travel across the Midwest. I live in Michigan, and while out surveying in Toledo, I was there for 4 days. I met a beautiful woman. Now, I hate to have to give her a compliment, but it's the truth. I met a beautiful woman by the name of Gabrielle. The moment I met her, I knew we'd have a union. All right, probably a bad joke, but that is my ex-wife's real name, Gabrielle. That was a red flag in itself. If anyone is listening and doesn't know who Gabrielle Union is, just Google her name and look what she did to her husband and his kid. It's wild. Anyway, I met her at a cafe downtown Toledo for lunch. She was my waitress. Immediately, she was very flirty with me, and I acted on her advances and got her number before I even finished lunch. Towards the end of my lunch, she sat with me at my table and told me to be careful and probably I shouldn't head to a certain area downtown. I had actually walked from that direction. She told me there were bad crowds over there and kids that were a bit violent near a bus stop station. I stopped and thought about it and said, yeah, I just encountered those young adults. Some were juveniles. They were definitely smoking trees and looking at me weird when I said hello. I heard someone say something. I didn't hear the beginning of what he said, but it ended with white boy. I just kept it moving. I didn't go back that direction and took the route she told me to. I texted her while I was walking so she'd have my number, and she called me. She told me she was getting off as she only had a half day of work that day and was asking where I was headed. I told her the location and she came to where I was. So if I was with a partner, I probably would not have allowed her to be with me while I was surveying. But I was doing this job by myself, and she watched and talked with me while I was working and setting up. She even helped a little, Not too much, but she stayed the whole 3.5 hours, even left to get us Gatorades. It was an amazing second half of my workday. We talked through the evening afterwards when I got to my room. My last day there, she stopped by my room before I headed out that morning, and we ended up having a passionate morning. She told me she's never moved on that quickly with anyone and hopes that I don't believe that she's an easy woman. I honestly did not think that at all. I headed back to Michigan and we continued to talk often. I was only a little over an hour from her, so me heading down for dates on weekends wasn't a big deal unless I had to be somewhere else over the weekend for work. She even started coming to me sometimes, and she'd stay at my place or I'd stay at hers some nights or weekends in Toledo. I learned that she was still trying to figure life out. So my ex-wife has a law degree, but she had trouble finding work. She almost dropped out of law school because it was much more difficult than she expected, and she did not graduate at the top of her class at all. She had always been discouraged and just felt like she took the wrong path in life. About 7 months into us dating exclusively, unbeknownst to me, my ex was looking for jobs in my area in Michigan, and she found one. It wasn't at a firm, but it was a journalist job here for the local news. It was behind the camera except for smaller stories, but she was on TV locally for a bit before taking a job at a law firm. She worked for this station here in Michigan for 7 years, and the chance to do some big stories came about. So obviously she ended up moving in with me, not even a year into us being exclusive, but it felt right indeed. We married pretty quickly and had a son. So I actually got a DNA test on my kid without her knowing. She still doesn't know. So the reason I did was because I was listening to a radio show one morning while in Indianapolis doing a job. There was a tarot card reader on the radio, and she was doing readings for listeners that were calling in. Between the calls, she mentioned how there was a listener listening right now live who just had a baby exactly 1 year ago. Mister, if you're listening, that is not your child. Get a DNA test. With my son being exactly 1 year old that day, I decided to do it when I returned home. I thought it was a sign. LOL. My ex-wife had no idea, but I did a DNA test. And he indeed was my kid, 99.99%. I know, silly for thinking that because of a radio station, but that's what happened. I never thought my ex-wife was cheating on me, and I honestly feel that she did not cheat on me until she started her job as a lawyer. Her entire personality just switched on me. She became a different person and thought that I just wasn't good enough for her. She never said those words, but actions speak louder than words. For years, even though she worked, she still came home to cook, clean, pack my lunches. She'd tend to me. She treated me like she looked up to me. But as soon as she finally made her way into a law firm and got the career she had always worked hard for, she didn't need me anymore. So at year 7 of our marriage, she came home very excited. Someone at the news station she worked with put in a good word for her at their buddy's firm, and my ex-wife had landed an interview. She was so excited, and I was too. I truly was happy for her. She went through 3 different interviews and landed the job. My ex-wife went from making $46,000 before taxes to $98,000 a year. I was so proud of her. I didn't look at it as if she made way more than me. My career paid me $80,000 and I resell refurbished items also. That usually puts me at $100K or more each year. Talking with a friend of mine, my one friend who was actually a serial cheater told me that my ex-wife thought she was better than me because her career salary trumped mine. I don't know. Could be true. Anyway, that entire year she changed a lot. Less cooking and cleaning. We hired a nanny for the baby, and she had a lot of business outings that I wasn't always a part of. Our bedroom love life dwindled down significantly. That entire we probably got it in maybe once a month, maybe. So I'm sure you all could understand my buildup and frustration. I snapped on her. I did. I started accusing her of cheating and we were arguing a lot. She kept saying she didn't cheat on me, ever, and I was crazy. All of a sudden, a colleague of hers was texting her. She didn't know that I was monitoring her text messages. She basically was confiding into him. This isn't the guy she left me for, though. She told this guy everything, and this is how I found out about the other guy, Lionel. This Lionel guy was some restaurant owner near their firm. My ex-wife talked about Lionel to her colleague. The message was, ex-wife, to be honest with you, Lionel's offer is becoming more and more intriguing. Colleague, Lionel from the restaurant? What offer? Ex-wife, he wants to take me on a trip and I am considering asking my husband for a separation. It wouldn't be right to go on a trip with another man if I don't do so. Colleague, be careful. If you're done with your husband, then just be done with him. Once I saw this is when I confronted my ex-wife. She denied, even though I had the messages in her face. She refused to look at them and kept denying everything. Eventually, she says, I'm taking my son and we're moving. You are crazy and dangerous. I was devastated. She actually pretended as if I'd hurt my child or something. That's what she did. She left that very day. I sat on my butt for days just in my thoughts when I should have been getting a lawyer. She returned back 3 days later with someone to serve me, divorce papers. There was an officer and movers there as well. I asked her, who is he? And she says, look at you. See, you're crazy. Making things up in your head, creating imaginary affair partners. I got a lawyer and showed him everything I had. I didn't know the app I'd used downloaded so much, but my lawyer had a client to use this specific app before in the past as well. She indeed had slept with Lionel multiple times that year. I was devastated. We didn't own the home we lived in, so we didn't have to fight for that. We got 50-50 custody of the children and no child support, and it was over. Happened pretty quickly, actually. You'd think this would be the end of the story, and she went on with her merry little life. Nope. She tried coming back. Lionel was a super player and only wanted to use her. She felt alone and couldn't find love, so she tried crawling back to me. After our divorce, I ended up meeting Lionel. When I would go by her place to pick up my son, I'd see Lionel a couple times. So this is what I found interesting. Before, she didn't want me coming to her place. She didn't want to come to my place and drop my son off. We met in the middle. Seems like as soon as Lionel started making his way over to her place more often, that's when she wanted me to come over, as to rub him into my face. Pretty weird, pretty awkward. But anyway, I met him a couple times and I kept my cool when he introduced himself. I'm like, man, I already know who you are, but I didn't care at that point. I was over it. My thing was, I just wanted to raise my son. I was glad I didn't have to pay anything like child support or anything like that, and I can just take care of my son and focus on my son. I had no desire for my ex-wife at all, not even a little bit. But I guess it made her feel good to rub this guy in my face or show that she was with someone else. Didn't bother me. After a while, her text messages towards me started to become different. Usually it'll be a text about our son or schooling or some type of program, things that he wants to join, which was cool. Keep it strictly about our kids. Wasn't a big deal. All of a sudden, how have you been? I'm sure you've moved on already. All these types of questions, and I'm just wondering, why is she asking me this? And it's none of your concern. I always told her, no, I haven't moved on to anyone. I'm not dating anyone. I'm actually not even interested in relationships right now. Kind of focused on things, my son, but every once in a while, she would call and tell me things like, you need to find love. You deserve love. She actually once told me I deserve love and started telling me how good of a person I was. And I was so shocked because when she left, I was just this toxic man and controlling guy towards her and our son. Now, all of a sudden, I'm just this great guy who needs to find true love. What happens when I'm old? I need someone to take care of me, yada, yada, crap like that. And I had a feeling maybe her and Lionel broke up. So one night she calls me drunk. She's talking to me about him. Oh, he was such a scumbag. He has so many girlfriends. And he wanted me to be one of his girlfriends on his roster. And he had claimed to have told me about this way before we got together. He said that I said I was okay with it, but I would never be okay with anything like that. I told her, oh, well, sounds like a personal problem. Now, where I messed up was I started to allow my ex-wife to start calling me and texting me, and I was actually holding conversations with her. But I promise you guys, not a bone in my body wanted to get back to her. I had no desire to be in a relationship with her. I just entertained the conversations because sometimes the conversations were pretty interesting. It's like we had almost became friends again. Now, guys, there were just no bones in my body that wanted her back. Please believe me, I had no desire. I know some people listening would say, sounds like you wanted her back, but listen, it was never going to happen, ever. Even if she wanted to come over or I go to her place just for some intimate time, that was never going to happen, and it still won't. She told me all about him one night. She was drunk yapping, and I just told her, well, sounds like a personal problem. Either you become part of his roster or leave them alone. She got upset with me. How dare you? What type of woman do you think I am? I'm not going to be a part of anyone's roster. I said, well, then leave it alone. That's when she started crying. I said, listen, I'm sorry. Maybe we should end the call. You should go get some sleep. You've been drinking. And she tells me, I miss you. I miss our family. I miss true love, real love. I miss someone holding me with purpose, kissing me with purpose, not just getting on top of me and banging and rolling over. I miss someone tending to my needs, and I'm just listening to her tell me all of this. When she got to the end of what she missed, I told her, well, maybe you can find it again out there. If not, well, just reminisce about it or something. I don't know. She got ticked off and hung up on me. I figured that was the end of that. She knew that I didn't want her, and it wasn't going to happen, so I just went on with my merry way and continued to raise my son, and did the things I was supposed to do as a father, kept my career going. I got into working out, boxing. Oh, I absolutely love boxing. I'm actually training to become a trainer. So yeah, I enjoy it. So did she come back again? Absolutely. This time she tried to use our son. My son told me how he missed mommy and daddy being together. He's embarrassed to tell all of his friends that his parents are separated, all this stuff. And I said, son, this is just how it is. I'm sure a lot of your other friends have divorced parents as well. Other students in your school have divorced parents. It's okay. You still have a mommy and daddy that really loves you, that truly loves you. We love you exactly the same, if not more now. We're here for you. We need to come together for you. We come together for you. But her and I, as one, it'll never be again, son. My son told me, mommy was crying about you and told me that if I wanted to help mommy get daddy back, feel free to just ask daddy. Man, what kind of crap is that? You're telling our son to ask me to take you back? A woman who replaced me for some other man? Mr. Lionel? The player? Freaking ridiculous. But you know I was not surprised at all. Something she'd do. I assured my son that his mother and I will never be married again. We will never live in the same home again. Ever, ever. Yes, I told my son this. He was a little sad and bummed out about it. 5 minutes later, I told him, we're going to the game room. It's an arcade here. I call it the game room, but it's an arcade downtown. He got excited, and I promised him his favorite afterwards. He'd forgotten all about it. I'm going to be honest, not to be a jerk, but if my son would have cried and would have been bummed out about it the entire night and did not want to go to the arcade and didn't switch his attitude and said something like, I'm not going to come out of this room until you and mom get back together, yada, yada, whatever, then oh well, my son would have just been crying in bed and stuck there. I would have just fired up the Xbox myself. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just being honest. I would never take his mother back. Her last attempt was offering me dinner at her place with her and my son. She thought that it would be great since we hadn't done it in so long and our son actually requested it. And she happened to make my favorite meal that night. So it all worked out perfect, she said. I said, no, this is when I put my foot down and let her know that we should not talk unless it's about our son, nothing else, nothing more. I told her, listen, I know what you're trying to do. You want to get back together with me. It'll never happen. I will never remarry you. I will never be your boyfriend. I will never casually be intimate with you. It's just never going to happen. I'm not trying to be an a-hole to you. I'm not trying to kick dirt in your face and say, ha ha, you messed up. Karma is a B. I simply just don't care. Move on with your life. If it's love you're looking for, you're not going to find it with me. I do not love you. I just don't. I love our son. I love what we've created. I have no love for you no longer. You left me. You ignored me for an entire year, and you were with another man. On your way out, you lied and acted like this man did not exist when I knew the whole entire time that he did. I've always known about Lionel, the guy at the restaurant. I saw all of your conversations with your colleagues when we were married. I saw everything. I knew you were lying to my face, and you told me to my face that I was making up imaginary people, acting as if you're cheating on me when you truly was cheating on me. I will never take you back. You're upset that Lionel played you. That's karma. Deal with it. It's never going to happen. And that's where I left it. She never texted me or called me again to just have a conversation. It was all about our son, true story. I'm glad I made it out of my situation, and I don't regret anything. I'm very, very grateful for my boy. I'll never remarry after her. I had no plans on it, not even a relationship. I just enjoy life, man. Take care, true story.